In today's video, we'll be discussing how we can keep the details in our renders. That is the finite details such as skin textures, the hair textures and the clothing textures, keeping them all nice and sharp so we can see all the wonderful details in our renders. And that's what we're going to be looking into today's tutorial. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Palmy and I'm here to help you master DAZSTUDIO and create the best 3D digital art that you can. So the settings in question that we'll be looking at are in render settings, editor and filtering. We're going to be particularly looking at the Post Denoiser and what that effect that plays when we're creating our renders. We're going to be looking at the pixel filter and we're going to be looking at pixel filter radius and how we can use these three settings to enhance our renders and make them sharp and make them pop. So the first thing I want to do is just go through the settings, how I created these renders that I'm going to show you about all the different settings. So in the general tab, I created HD renders, so full HD, 1920 by 1080, full HD there. For the progressive rendering, I just max samples 15,000. That's all I did. And for the filtering, sorry, not the filtering, for the environment, the lighting, all I used was in the basic environment map and turned it to 5, the setting, intensity of 5. And dome rotation 77.14. Now you don't need to memorize all these settings. What I'm going to do is save this as a scene subset so you can use that and test your own theory, test it on your own system and see what results you get. I'll put the link in the description for that down below. If you want to download that, you can always just use that inside DAZSTUDIO. And the other reason is I've used Darius 8 HD because this is the best male character that I have that has HD settings. If you use a character that's not HD, it's very, very difficult to tell the details, especially when it comes to skin details and things like that. You really want to use a HD character, which I'm sure most of you probably do have by now, because there are a lot of deals on the DAZ 3D store where you can purchase HD characters. If you want to, you don't have to make your renders look much more. Awesome. So let's go back to the filtering. So what I did was I created several renders, several renders, nearly 100 renders, folks, using these settings. So a combination of Post Denoiser on and off with the pixel filter and with the pixel filter radius, different pixel filter radiuses. So the first thing I did, the first test I did was let's look at the pixel filter here and open that that drop down box, and we can see there's several different pixel filter options that we have. We have box, triangle, Gaussian, Mitchell and Lanczos, I believe that's the way you say it. Lanczos there. So what we have is we've got the least kind of like the most like blurriest really, going all the way to the sharpest here. That's supposedly that's the actual scale there. We have the least sharpest and we have the most sharpest here. And obviously the default is Gaussian with a pixel filter of 1.5, which is the DAZSTUDIO default that everyone starts off with. So obviously I didn't use box or triangle because those are very, very bad. There's no reason why we should use box and triangle. It doesn't make sense unless you want your renders to look even worse. I highly suggest you don't do that. We're going to be looking at Gaussian, Mitchell and Lanczos and seeing what the differences are between these three right now. So what I'm going to do is go into Photoshop. I'm going to show you the different renders and we're going to go through and see if we can find any differences between Gaussian, Mitchell and Lanczos. So let's get into Photoshop right now. So here we are inside Photoshop, and here we got on the left we got three different versions. So on the left here we've got Gaussian 1.5 pixel filter radius with no denoiser on, so there's no post denoiser on this. Middle we've got Gaussian, we've got Mitchell pixel filter with 1.5 again, pixel filter radius, again no denoiser on, and the same here as well. Lanczos 1.5 pixel filter and no denoiser on there. So as I'm looking at these right now, we've got Gaussian, Mitchell and Lanczos, all the same pixel filter, no post denoiser on them as well. And they look very similar to me. I don't see any differences whatsoever in the skin, in the quality of the hair. I just see no difference whatsoever. Some of you may have better eyesight than me or may have a better inclination in terms of seeing differences. I cannot see any differences whatsoever in the hair, the eyebrows, any details. They all seem to be there, which is kind of strange. So let's move on to another one just to make sure that my computer's not doing weird stuff or DAZSTUDIO is not doing weird stuff. I did another test with the pixel filter of 1. So I'm going to just change these now. Pixel filter of 1 for Gaussian here. Pixel filter of 1 for Mitchell here. Pixel filter 1. And the same here as well. Pixel filter 1 radius for Lanczos. Here we go. So again, I don't see any difference whatsoever. They all look very similar to me. It's almost like DAZSTUDIO is not even applying the Mitchell filter or the Lanczos filter whatsoever. It's kind of strange. So they all look identical to me. Whether I can see any differences, I don't think so. Maybe you can as well at home. Again, I thought, well, this is a bit strange. It all looks the same to me. So I'm going to try a pixel filter 0.5 radius. So pixel 0.5 radius for Gaussian, 0.5 radius for Mitchell, and 0.5 radius for Lanczos. There we go. Now, apart from obviously the image being more noisier, we're seeing more details obviously in these images because the pixel filter is going down. We're getting more sharper images. So the lower we make this pixel filter radius, the sharper the image gets, the more noise we get generally. You don't want to go too far low because you don't want to get too sharp to the point where it's super noisy. But again, I cannot see any difference whatsoever between Gaussian, Mitchell, and the Lanczos filters here. It's almost like DAZSTUDIO is not even applying them. All the details are very minute, so minute that I am unable to tell what is happening just by looking at these. So I'm assuming that DAZSTUDIO is not applying the Mitchell filter or the Lanczos filter at all, and it's just using Gaussian for some reason. That is my conclusion that I've come to with all the renders that I've done. This is why I'm showing you this. So I highly recommend that you try this in your DAZSTUDIO. I'll give you the settings, just like I said before. I'll even make these images available in the link in the description down below as well. You can download them and have a look at them, no problem. And maybe you can tell me in the comments below if you see a difference, because I don't see a difference whatsoever. So I'm assuming, my assumption is right now, currently, is that DAZSTUDIO doesn't use the Mitchell and Lanczos filter at all. It seems to be just using the Gaussian filter as the default wherever that is possible for whatever reason. So that is my conclusion that I've come to. Maybe when you test at home, you can come to your own conclusion whether the Mitchell filter or the Lanczos filter is actually being used. So the next set of renders I want to show you is the difference between Post Denoiser on and Post Denoiser off. And we're only going to use the Gaussian filter renders because those are the ones that I believe that DAZSTUDIO is just using as default for some reason. So I'm going to just show you those now. I'm going to set that up right now and we'll get back into Photoshop. So here we are inside Photoshop again. Now on the left we have all the renders here that I have the Post Denoiser on, and on the right here all the renders with all the Post Denoiser off. So here we have a pixel filter radius of 1.5 for each of these using the Gaussian filter, and with the Post Denoiser on and the Post Denoiser off. And as you can see, there is not much difference between it off here and on. It seems to be very good at actually figuring out the Post Denoiser, where it needs to turn it on and turn it off. So it looks very similar to the one with the Post Denoiser off. There's not many details that are kind of like where the Post Denoiser has decided to hide, so to speak, decided to blur, so to speak. And it's done very good as well with the hair as well. It's very, very good, very, very good at 1.5. So I can see why DAZSTUDIO decided to make that as a default pixel for the pixel filter radius 1.5 and Gaussian filter as a default. As you can see, there's not much difference with the Post Denoiser off and on there. So let's move on to pixel filter radius of 1. So there's pixel filter radius 1 and here as well. There we go. So pixel filter radius 1, this is where you start to see some issues. Pixel filter radius 1 here. So there's a one on the right here with, there we go, on the right here, which has no Post Denoiser applied, and on the left here has it applied. So you can start to see some smoothing here where the pixel filter, the Post Denoiser has decided to think like, well, there's too much noise there, I'm going to apply it there. As you can see, it's quite aggressive. But here on the left, on the right hand side, we can see it hasn't applied it there. So again, it's not that much difference at 1. It's you can see there is a few issues here. So with the Post Denoiser off, it seems like if you're going to do portraits, I would probably suggest you choose a pixel filter radius of like 1 as your kind of like your starting point, and your Post Denoiser, I would have it off just to keep all the details of all the skin like this, all these different textures. You want to keep it all there as well. As you can see, there's a bit of smoothing here that is not there as well, thanks to the Post Denoiser. So let's go to 0.5, and I think you're going to be very surprised when you see 0.5 pixel filter radius. I'll show you the one with none. So as you see, you would expect it to be more sharper, which it is on the right hand side. No denoiser on here, but pixel filter radius of 0.5. And here on the left is going to like really surprise you. So here on the left, here on left, we can see what it looks like with the Post Denoiser on. And as you can see, it's quite apparent what the Post Denoiser is actually doing. How aggressive it is. It's very aggressive when it comes to 0.5 pixel filter radius. It really does turn it into this very like, almost like this person's got no pores, kind of like Botox going on, or some sort of like silicone skin going on or something. I don't know how to explain it. It just looks weird. It just looks really weird. So if you want details in your portraits, it's highly suggested that you do not turn the denoiser on. Keep it off, especially if you're using very, very low pixel radius, 0.5. Probably shouldn't need to go to 0.5 whatsoever. Something between 1 and 0.5 is pretty good for your, to keep those details inside your portraits. You definitely don't want to stick on Post Denoiser. As you can see how very aggressive it is, and it's really just smoothing everything. Alright, so we've had a look at hair here and skin on a male figure. I'll do a female figure later on, but let's move to clothing. How does pixel filter radius affect clothing? So let's have a look at that. I'm going to set up Photoshop and then we're going to come right back into it. So here we are back inside Photoshop and we're looking at some clothes here. Very, very close details that I've done, zoomed up for the camera here. And again, on the left hand side, we have the denoiser on here on the left hand side, and on the right hand side, the denoiser off. So this is that pixel 1.5, as you can see, 1.5 pixel radius. And there is not much difference really you can tell with this as well. This is with the denoiser on, and this is with the denoiser off here. And it's not that bad actually with clothing. Clothing seems to be pretty good in terms of getting the details out of clothing when you zoom in. So the pixel filter radius doesn't seem to be that aggressive at 1.5. The Post Denoiser doesn't seem to be very aggressive at 1.5. So let's go to pixel filter radius of 1. So pixel filter radius of 1. And again, you can see there's not much difference really. Obviously, you would expect the clothes to be sharper at 1, and they are sharper here as well. Even with the denoiser on here on the left hand side, it's looking pretty good. It's very, very difficult to tell what detail you're missing out on really from these here. The tie and the shirt and everything looks to be very, very good. So let's move on to 0.5 here, and I think you might notice a difference here. So 0.5 here with the Post Denoiser on the left, Post Denoiser off on the right. We start to see some more like jagged edges here that you probably wouldn't see anyway, and this is just a 0.5 without the denoiser on, 0.5 pixel radius. And as you can see, it does get sharper and sharper. So if I, for example, went to 1.5 here, you probably might see the difference. So we've got 1.5 pixel filter here on the left, which is the denoiser on, and on the right we have a pixel filter radius of 0.5. And you can see it is sharper, it is getting sharper. So you can see the sharpness here of the tie and all these extra bits here, all these extra kind of features of the shirt are getting sharper because we're not using the actual Post Denoiser. So again, with this conclusion, I would say that at pretty much whatever setting you use for your pixel filter radius, if you just want to show off the clothing, it doesn't really matter what you choose. Obviously, the lower you go, the better. But with the Post Denoiser on, it's very, very difficult to tell the sharpness of the image. So again, I would suggest something like starting off with a value of 1 for your pixel radius, pixel filter radius. And anything between 0.5 and 1 is pretty good starting range. And then if you want to put the Post Denoiser on, then you can do. And there's not much difference you will see with that. It's very, very minimal difference you will see between the clothing here. As you can see here, 0.5 with the Post Denoiser on, 0.5 pixel radius on the right, Post Denoiser off. It's very, very difficult to tell the details, what details have actually been blurred or anything. So again, it's pretty good in terms of that DAZSTUDIO with the Gaussian as the default. It's pretty good, pretty conclusive in terms of getting those details out of those clothing that you that are using on your characters. So for my fourth set of renders that I did, the testing was on a female figure. Because to be honest, everyone knows this anyway, I'll say it right now, the female figures have the best skin textures just away because they sell very, very well. And this is the best one that I have right now, the best female figure with the best textures that I've got right now. So this is the one I used for my testing. So on the left hand side we have the 1.5 pixel filter radius. with the Post Denoiser on, and on the right hand side we have the same 1.5 pixel filter radius with the Post Denoiser off. So as you can see, you can't really tell much difference just by looking at it. Maybe some details do come apparent, but as you can see, the Post Denoiser does a pretty good job of keeping the actual features that we want in terms of the skin texture. It does a very good job at 1.5. So I'm quite impressed by that actually. It's very, very difficult to tell what details are missing or what details have been blurred by the Post Denoiser. So let's move on to pixel radius, filter radius of 1. And on this side as well, pixel filter radius of 1 as well. And again, now you can start to see maybe some details here or maybe not. Again, it's very, very good the way the actual Post Denoiser works. You can see that, you can see some sharp, some jagged edges here, and then you can see some here as well. It's very, like I said, it's very difficult to tell because the Post Denoiser is actually very good at this. Now, I have a strange feeling that because on my earlier image, the skin color of the Darius is obviously darker, therefore it's more aggressive, I think, when it comes to the Post Denoiser being applied at lower filter radiuses. Especially at 0.5, it's very aggressive because the skin person or the skin color of this figure is actually lighter. I think the actual the Post Denoiser is not as aggressive. It doesn't seem to be as aggressive for whatever reason, because obviously the Post Denoiser is all about removing the noise when it's dark, when there's not enough light. In this case, we've got plenty of light. The skin color of this figure helps because it's light. It just makes it easier. It makes the light bounce off, and it doesn't really grab the light. The light bounces off of it, and we've got generally a lot of light, which means that the Post Denoiser doesn't need to come into effect that much. Right, so let's move on to 0.5 for each of these. So 0.5 there, and 0.5 here. And I think now you start to see some differences there. At 0.5, you can see the kind of like the definition coming out in the hair here, more like jagged edges, so to speak. And here you can see the Post Denoiser has decided to kick in now a bit more. We still see some jagged edges here, but the Post Denoiser has decided to kick in a little bit here, but we still do see some jagged edges here. Now, obviously, you can't tell as much here. What I'm going to do is actually put this onto 1.5, and you'll see a huge difference here. So when we go here, you'll start to see a difference. So 1.5 pixel filter radius here with the Post Denoiser on, 0.5 here with the Post Denoiser off, and straight away I can see some significant differences. The hair, straight away you can see that is a lot more sharper here. We've got the jagged edges here because we're using a lower pixel filter radius, more sharper. The eyebrows here are softer here, but here we get to see some of the kind of like almost the light coming off the eyebrows here. You can see the kind of like sharpness of the eyebrows. Here, the eyelashes, if you have a look at the eyelashes and have a look at the eyelashes here, these are more like blurry, as you can see. And here, they're more like sharper, more defined. Okay, and again, when we go to lips as well here, you'll see the reflection here. This is a bit more like got Gaussian blur to it. This has got more like sharpness. We see more of those like the definition in the lips there as well. So now you can see the difference from the pixel filter 0.5 and the pixel filter here 1.5. Okay, so now obviously I'm recommending that you try these settings out yourself. Obviously all the renders will be available for you to see yourself. I'll put the link in the description down below as well for that as well in the description box. What I recommend you do is you test these out and see what works best for you. I found out that depending on what kind of pixel size you're using, your render image size, it depends on how strong you want your pixel filter to be. So at these settings, depending on how much you zoom into the character, you may want higher pixel filter or lower pixel filter, depending on what kind of effect you want. Again, there are a number of ways to remove noise. One of the ways you can do if you don't want to use a Post Denoiser is to double your size. So if I was going to create a render image of, say, for example, HD, I wanted my output to be HD, then I would render in full HD, which is double the size. And then I would render at that, and then I would go into Photoshop or whatever photo editing software is and downsample that to 720p. That will remove the noise but still keep all the details. That's one way you can do that as well. The other way is to run your render for longer. So that would mean going to your progressive render modes, and actually turning off rendering quality and putting the convergence ratio up really high, so like 99%, something, or even 100%, something like 99%, pretty high. And that means, or even 100% if you want to go all the way. 100% means it will just keep rendering. It will just keep rendering, and it won't stop because it will just continue forever and ever. And you can leave that on for many, many hours if you wish to do so. And that's another way to remove those noise if you don't want to use the Post Denoiser. Okay, I highly recommend you don't do that. But if you wish to do that, that is an option for you there. So you're probably wondering, Palmy, what settings do you use? Because that's what we really want to know about. So the settings that I use are literally what I'm showing you right now. If I just go to the filtering, my setting is this. This is what I use. That's what I use. I use the Post Denoiser on for all of my comic book images. Have this. The Post Denoiser is on, enabled. The start iteration is at 8. The Gaussian, the pixel filter is set to Gaussian because I believe that DAZSTUDIO doesn't even use Mitchell or Lanczos for whatever reason. And the pixel filter radius is set to 1. And all my renders seem to turn out to be very good. I'll show you one of the renders right now. So here is the image from my comic book, just a random sample I want to show you with those same settings that I just showed you earlier. So as you can see, it's very sharp here, the image, thanks to the pixel filter radius of 1. Gaussian, even though the Post Denoiser filter is on, it's not that bad. It hasn't really been very aggressive in this point. It hasn't been as aggressive as I thought it would be. I can still see the details of the face of my character here. I can still see the sharpness of the clothing as well, thanks to the pixel filter radius of 1. And overall it's looking very sharp. Now this image here was rendered at 2160 by 2160, which is double the Instagram post size of 1080 by 1080. And obviously when I put that into my comic book, it's going to look even more really high quality image because of just the render size. So that's what I'm using right now currently as I work that out. This is the new settings I'm using, and I'm really happy with these settings with my comic book, especially I'm getting the details that I want in my images. So don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let me know if you try these pixel filter radius settings and the Post Denoiser. If you found this tutorial helpful, leave the comment down below as well. If you have any suggestions or opinions, leave them down below as well in the comments. I'm happy to read those and reply to those as well. Don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to hit that wonderful subscribe button as well to subscribe to this channel so you can find out any more cool videos like this going to help you on your journey to master DAZSTUDIO so you can create the best 3D digital art you can. And don't forget to check out these videos over here that are going to help you on your journey as well. And having said that, I'll see you all in next week's video.